Caitlin, how does the administration square this expansion of the Remain in Mexico policy with its claims that it ultimately wants to end it?
They really can't square the two. And that's the problem, is that, the Biden administration has been very vocal about wanting to create what they call is a more humane immigration system to restore rights to humanitarian protections that have been passed by Congress into law. And yet we're seeing basically more of the same, and the expansion or the reintroduction of the Remain in Mexico program and the expansion of it is an example of that. Of course, the administration did face this court order that required them to put the program back into place, but the expansion, which extends beyond just Spanish speakers to people from other countries, it really calls into question what the administration is actually going to do. And it has a lot of Democrats saying, hey, I feel like I voted for a new process, a more, humane, a more safe process, and instead very little is changing.
Right. And Caitlin, I do want to loop back and pick up on that political question. But before we do, Taylor, what does this mean for the people you represent?
I mean, it's been absolutely devastating. We expected that the Democrats would do the right thing, that they would restore asylum on the southern border, that they would give people a fair chance to seek protection as our laws required. And instead, we're seeing an expansion of the program and this disingenuous lie over and over again that the administration's hands were tied. They had no other option but to comply with this court order. When the judge left it open to the possibility of notice and comment rulemaking, they could have done other things. They could have fought harder, but instead they're using it as political leverage to say, oh, we had to do it because of the court order, when that's not true and it's not accurate and there has not been enough pushback there. Instead, we're expanding the program and putting Haitians in it as well.
Caitlin, what legal or legislative options are available for the Biden administration to officially end this program?
Well, so here's the problem that the Biden administration faces, is that I think that, the last administration, President Trump, really underscored this misnomer, this idea that a lot of people seem to have, that the president controls immigration laws, when really it's Congress who can rewrite immigration laws and address the realities that are leading to so many people, being siphoned through this very small, this ever smaller window of asylum, because, there are more and more restrictions on asylum, it feels like, on a regular basis. And what I think a lot of people don't realize is that so many people enter the United States through the asylum system because they're legally entitled to, and because there is no other legal way to get here. I think that a lot of Americans across the political spectrum agree the current system isn't working, but the Biden administration and Democrats in general, I think, have failed to come up with a way of reforming it and changing it in a way that doesn't chip away at these protections that so many Democratic voters are concerned about. And that really will require the help of Congress.
Taylor, let's talk about those protections. On Twitter, you laid out the consequences for migrants seeking asylum from specific countries. Who is affected most by this expansion?
The population that it's affected most by the expansion is for sure the Haitian community. But now Haitians will be subject both to the possibility of being put on a plane with no chance to seek asylum and just dumped back in Haiti, or perhaps they'll be put into MPP where they're in dangerous border cities. They don't speak the language. There's insufficient humanitarian aid. And everything that the administration says about we're going to work with the Mexican government to provide humanitarian aid is also untrue in its effect, because it's the Mexican government officials who are often doing the kidnapping, doing the rapes, doing the disappearances. They're the ones who I was the most afraid of when I was on the ground, even more than the cartels themselves, because they act with so much impunity. And we're going to continue to see that.
Caitlin, let's loop back to this political question. You've written for The Atlantic that the Democrats' free pass on immigration is over as the Biden administration keeps Title 42, Remain in Mexico in place, the fate of immigration passing through the spending bill in the hands of the parliamentarian as we speak. How do Democrats prove then that they are the party who wants to finally fix this broken system?
Right. It doesn't feel like Democrats put their money where their mouth is when it comes to immigration, right? We've had now our last two Democratic presidents have made big promises about how they want to reform the system and they want to work with Congress. Both have emphasized, both President Obama I'm talking about and now President Biden have emphasized this desire to work across the aisle and try to collaborate with Republicans in a way to get, some legislation that can truly make a change. And they haven't done it. And, that's the difference in many ways between the results of the Trump administration and what we're looking at now is that, President Trump also made big promises about immigration when he was campaigning, and a lot of them actually came to fruition. And so I think that has a lot of Democrats just trying to figure out, what to do. And Taylor knows this better than anybody. But, the result is that you have so many people who are stuck living in these Mexican border cities. And I wanted to emphasize her point because I think sometimes some of your viewers might say, well, I go on vacation to Mexico. What do you mean? Like, what's so bad about it? That's not the part of Mexico that we're talking about. These are areas that the United States State Department categorizes on par with parts of the world that are actively at war. It advises Americans do not go to these regions because they're not safe. American government employees in these regions have to observe a curfew. They're only allowed to visit their homes and U.S. embassies and very select locations in downtown areas because it is not safe. I've had to follow safety protocols when I travel there for reporting that are as if I'm in a war-torn country. And so, what do we do when we're scared? When we're out on the street and we're scared, you go home, you go inside your house and you lock the door. But think about, the situation of an asylum seeker who's in an area where, the State Department's website says kidnapping is a huge risk, extortion is a huge risk, murder is a huge risk, and they're living outside. So that's the result of this intractability in Washington.